Hello, and welcome to
Hart and Hustle, Texas teams, Texas talents.
I'm the Hart.
I'm the Hustle.
I love it. I feel like I like that intro because we kind of just thought of that on the fly one time.
Yeah,
the second episode, I was just like, I'm going to point to you, and I hope you
It's a show for nerds by nerds.
It is a show for nerds by nerds, and we're the nerds.
Yeah, football nerds. The best kind of nerds. My favorite people.
Correct. This is episode 6 of Hart and Hustle, which is already crazy. I mean, I feel like we're about to enter week 5 of the Texas high school football and college football season. It's just flown by. And
takes forever at the same time.
Oh, yes, right.
It's flown by, but there's been like so much work. And I know you're inundated with work. So
right. And here's the thing, too, I've said about every football season that I've gone through here at Dave Campbell's is the days feel very long, but the weeks feel short. You know? Like you sit down at work and you're like, man, that was such a long day at work. But then you look back at last week and you're like, that just flew by to me. I don't know if you're the same way, but
it does. And as you get older, you're just a young pup. I'm an old experienced vet. The older that you get, the more time passes by quickly too. So like your perspective whenever you're 30 is completely different than when you're my age. I'm not going to give you guys any numbers to like on the bulletin board, but when you're my I'll be 28. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. I forgot.
But the days go by even quicker. Like life passes you by faster the quicker you are to death.
100%. I think so too. 100%. Okay, where are you going to be at this week? I'm curious.
So thank you. First and foremost, you RSVP'd me for the Waco University versus Lampasas game for tomorrow night.
The best Thursday night game in the entire state, and I stand by it. CE King, I think Atascocita has potential to be good too, but I think Lampasas at Waco University to see our guy London Smith. I'm so excited to see
He's one of my favorite players. Like he's a fun interview too. Like his parents are really cool, and he's been extremely gracious and kind every time that I've spoken with him. So I really like London Smith. But I got to be honest, on Lampasas' sideline, Ty Johnson, 2027 wide receiver. I put together the 2027 4-star list early. 27 players earned a 4-star distinction already. He wasn't one that I was like 100% certain about. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see him in person to see like, oh, did you miss this guy? Because I know I missed one. Mm-hmm. Jacoby Dixon, which you like a lot at Brenham, 2027 running back. He didn't make the 4-star cut like on the initial 4-star ranking, so he decided to score 8 touchdowns in a game to prove me how wrong I was. Well, thanks, Jacoby.
Well, no, thank you, Jacoby, because you had that performance literally the same week I talked about him on Women Talking Football. So we talked about him that Wednesday. He went off that Thursday or Friday. I don't know which day their game was, but that was perfect timing.
We have a lot of football talk here in the offices, I would say.
Yes.
Jacoby Dixon was a point of conversation for 2 weeks here. So because he was like on the cut line too on the 2027 4-star list. Like I think he'll be a 4-star, but man, I was like really wanting to make sure with the running back, like to verify their speed or maybe see them in person. I'm really just like cautious when it comes to ranking players high at some positions because in Texas, if you're a good running back, everybody knows about you early.
Correct.
Colleges have started to offer early and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes that luster wears off. And I just hadn't seen Jacoby with my own 2 eyes. Well, gosh, this week's game tape was just sick. Anyway, sorry for segueing us like so far away from. Look,
let's get into it.
Lancaster and SMU this week, and this is like one of the favorite. This is one of my favorite graphics.
It's okay. Before we get into it, I told V-Day, I was like, every time we come in here, every episode,
Powers just knocks over the football every time. Anyway, I can't get it. There it is.
Everybody knows our nice.
We work for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Lancaster, one of my favorite programs in the DFW area, and then SMU riding high off of a big win over TCU. So, I mean, this is going to be a fun episode, I feel like.
I think so, too. That win over – and I talked to Craven about this. Well, he talked about it on ROF. And the Republic of Football, we cover the 13 FBS teams in the state so intently. I mean, we know these teams like the back of our hand. We know the depth charts going into each week. We know who's injured, who's good to go for each week. You know, we have a pretty good idea of – who's going to win each matchup next week, right? Craven said that, so he was at the Iron Skillet last week.
Yeah.
He said, leaving Ford Stadium, he had never felt so shook in his life, leaving college that he's covered, because of how crazy that outcome was and how big of, I mean, SMU put up 66 points.
It was a bloodletting.
It was.
And I didn't watch all the game. I watched most of the game. And SMU did a tremendous job on both sides of the football, controlling the tempo, and they didn't take their foot off the gas.
No,
they weren't going to let TCU get back in the game. But to me, that's a huge game, right? They knocked off a Big 12 opponent. Mm-hmm. Most years you're saying, all right, our friends SMU and the AC, they stepped up and beat a P4 team. Well, they're a P4 team themselves now.
Yep.
And to me, this week's game, when I think of the ACC,
I think Florida State and Clemson.
As an older person too, Clemson wasn't relevant like back in the day like they are now. Like they've always been a good program, but Florida State, like they made a movie about Florida State. Like so, Florida State is like if I have to think of like a program in the ACC of like this is the benchmark, Florida State is the test that I want, and they're coming off their biggest win against TCU in what could have been the final Iron Skillet game, and now have Florida State in the game that you would have circled on your, your schedule ahead of the year.
And I think, like you mentioned, this game definitely has lost a little bit of its luster because of how down Florida State is. They lost, I won't get too much into it, but they lost a ton. I mean, they lost. Jordan Travis, obviously their quarterback was the star there. Keon Coleman at wide receiver. They lost a lot of guys. DJU steps in at quarterback, and he just hasn't looked. Did you know that they're ranked 126th in scoring offense in the nation?
Wow.
Florida State is. So I think this SMU defense is about to eat.
Well, and I just like watching SMU because they have so many players on their team like that we covered in high school.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the same way about a lot of Texas schools, but sometimes there's like a program in a certain year that just has like a lot of guys that you can't help but root for. Kevin Jennings is the funnest college football player to me. Like I like, and I love Preston Stone. Like I'm a big Preston Stone guy.
Both Texas guys,
I love watching Preston Stone. He's one of the better quarterbacks I covered coming out of high school. Like his family a whole lot. Can't help but root for him to be successful. But just like watching a game, Kevin Jennings is real fun.
I think so too. Well, and that's a perfect segue into talking about SMU and how well they've done on the recruiting trail this year. So obviously, like you mentioned, now in a new conference in the ACC, I feel like that their national footprint has really grown.
Agree.
I think they are ranked 24th in
24th,
the class
25th,
of 2025, right? For perspective, last year their 2024 class was 57th overall.
Wow.
57th
so they've
overall.
Jumped up over 30 spots in the national rankings. And as a guy who like compiled national rankings at 24/7 and Scout, the thing that you're looking for if you're a college team is to crack into that top 25. I feel like if you can consistently produce a top 25 class, that you're going to compete for conference championships and you're going to be in now the college football playoff talk.
Right.
And I think that's really important to get the type of talent on your squad that can help you get to those goals. With SMU, I find it interesting, too, in this regard. I feel like if I were to just walk up to a random college football fan and ask them, tell me about SMU's recruiting, they would just talk about the transfer portal.
Yeah, because they're transfer you.
They've been great at it. But to be a powerhouse program, you have to be able to recruit high school.
Correct.
Because you have to have the depth. And you have to coach that depth into your system. This is the class that I feel like is going to change the perception of what SMU is doing. They've already got 22 high school commits, right? There's only 85. Well, okay, technically there's not only 85 scholarships anymore. I guess you can go a little bit beyond that, but there's only so many spots available for experience, right? Like there's a 2 deep and who's practicing on the practice squad and all that kind of stuff. There's limited amounts of spots. Well, they've made an investment into the high school ranks for this class.
Right.
They're still going to add transfer portal talent at the end of the year. They have to. But now they're able to now take this and be like, all right, we can recruit at SMU. And they've gone out of state. It's not all been Texas.
I was going to hit on that because I know you wanted to talk about that real quick. Before we start diving into their in-state recruits, let's talk about a little bit about their interior offensive linemen. They've got 3 in the class of 2025, 1 from Hawaii and 2 from California. But talk about that a little bit.
I'm not going to remember their names. I watched their tape, but I thought that they were all really quality players, very similar players too. Road graders, but not guys like they're none of these guys were like in that 6'5" range. These were all grimy 6'2", 310, 330 pound interior offensive linemen who were really smart. And Texas produces a lot of good offensive linemen.
Dermot Odoms.
Yeah, Dermot Odoms is the ringleader.
Number 6 tackle in the state of Texas, is that?
Yeah, and he's ranked high. He's actually ranked higher on the National Recruiting Services than I have him here in our Texas rankings at DCTF. I think I have him like in the 30s, and I think he's in the teens on some of the other ranking services. I still think he has a lot of development in front of him, but his upside is through the roof, and he's like. To me, he might not be their most marquee commitment, but he was one of their eye-opening commitments in this class because I think the marquee commitment is under center.
I think so too. But let's talk about quarterbacks here for a second. Keelan Russell, Duncanville's quarterback.
Yep.
Was an SMU commit for a while, I want to say. Flipped to Alabama this summer. So SMU's like, okay, what do we do? Well, let's go down to San Antonio. Bear with me, to San Antonio Johnson, and let's get their former quarterback, Ty Hawkins, who was a TCU commit, flipped to SMU, now playing out of state at IMG Academy in Florida.
Yeah, he is a tremendous talent, though. I am a big Ty Hawkins guy.
Me too.
I
wish
really
he would have stayed in state.
It would have been awesome if he would have stayed in state, but I understand his decision to go to IMG Academy to play a national schedule and what that school offers, I feel like, is an opportunity to concentrate a lot more on sports heading into college. So I get why he made that decision. But just talking about what he brings to the table for SMU, he is an improvisational quarterback, a quarterback who quite honestly reminds me the most of Kyler Murray since Kyler Murray left high school. Ty Hawkins reminds me the most of Kyler Murray of anybody else who I've covered. And there have been a lot of like high school quarterbacks who've tried to emulate Kyler Murray and play like him. And I don't think Ty Hawkins tries to do that at all. I just think that's the style of his game. He's a guy who can really pull the ball down and run when he gets in trouble. He can also do design runs and that kind of stuff. But what I really like about him is that he's very surgical in his approach to delivering 100%. The football to all of his weapons. And he's got an extremely quick trigger. He's grown up kind of before our eyes, too, because the Ty Hawkins you see now wasn't the Ty Hawkins we saw when he was playing as a sophomore and a freshman at San Antonio. This dude's ripped now. Like, he's like college ready. Like, he looks like a full-grown man. So,
this
like,
might have been the best thing to ever happen to SMU was him going to the IMG Academy.
He is he's ready to go, I feel like, and could come in and make that quarterback room better right away. But I also think that he's been a good ringleader on the recruiting trail. Huge victory to flip him from TCU.
Oh yeah.
Another visitor at SMU's win over TCU was Lancaster's 2026 defensive back Victor Lincoln, who made his commitment to SMU following that big Iron Skillet win. And
I read not even 24 hours later he committed to SMU after that win.
So not only racking up wins on the field, racking up wins on the recruiting trail for Rhett Lashley, powered by that victory, I feel like, which by all accounts from recruits who I've spoken with and messaged since the game ended, they had a blast. Good. They had a really good time at that game. And I think it's going to continue to pay dividends down the road. I don't know that there's a whole lot of room left to add recruits in the class of 2025. But 2026 and beyond, SMU is one of those schools I feel like more national pundits are going to take notice of because of big wins like they're having over TCU, because they're in Dallas. They have a very competitive NIL infrastructure in place, which I think is going to benefit them.
And they're right next to the District of Doom. District 11 6A with
That's true.
Duncanville, DeSoto, Waxahachie, Lancaster, now a part of that district, moving up, which is crazy to think about because, like, realignment did not do Lancaster any favors. Stuck them in one of the toughest districts.
They did get them out of the gates with a win, though.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Cedar Hill, usually the Dallas Skyline, but they have done a great job of hitting that district hard and pulling guys out of there. So let's look at DeSoto. So wide receiver Dalen Singleton and Sael Reyes. I got to correct to the safety down there at DeSoto. And then even at Duncanville, Tyron Pauly and Javion Holiday, too, at corner down there. They've done a great job at keeping kids home and really hitting that tough district there that they're right next to.
If there's a district that I wanted to recruit, it's 11-6A because of the guys that you mentioned. But not only did they get these key commitments from Reyes and Singleton at DeSoto, but they got them over nationally ranked teams. These were huge recruiting victories, and I feel like sometimes, especially in the NIL and transfer portal era, we don't do a good enough job of giving credit where credit is due. These are wins that SMU wouldn't have pulled out in years past. One-offs, right? Mm-hmm. Preston Stone was a one-off victory for SMU, a four-star quarterback who has SMU ties to come to the program. That was a one-off. Now they're starting to have established wins, pointed victories. They were pointed victories with Singleton and Reyes. They were pointed victories at Duncanville with Holiday and Pauly. Pauly's one of my favorite players in this class. He is rated as a 3-star player. He led the team in interceptions last year. Mm-hmm. He led the team in tackles. You're talking about a Duncanville team that is just loaded with D1 skill. Pauly is a dog. He's a little shorter than, I think, 5'11" range probably. But make no mistake, he's very versatile in the defensive secondary. He could play corner. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He's fearless, which I love, and he doesn't waste time making his reads. He is a football player's football player, and I think that will really make him a tremendous college player. I'm putting up there, there's been a lot of these defensive backs that have come out, Jonathan McGill and Jalen Catalon, and some of these guys that you're yeah, they're football playing dudes.
They're dudes.
Pauly is in that category for me, and I'm always evaluating my own rankings, and Pauly is easily one of those guys who, based on football talent, could be rated much higher.
I think so too. Really just impressed.
Man. Did you know his nickname was Man? Isn't that a great nickname?
That is great.
Man. Pauly. He's a freak.
I need that. I wonder where that comes from. I'd be curious.
I don't know. I mean, maybe because he's great at man coverage.
I like that.
Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe.
I like that. Well, another guy that's great at man coverage, you can say 2026 Lancaster corner, Victor Lincoln.
Yep.
Who is the SMU commit that you mentioned earlier. What a dude. You already mentioned it. He's great in man-to-man coverage. But let's look at a little bit more closely at Lancaster's team as a whole. And my favorite stand is the wide receiver there, Emmanuel Choice, who's the OU commit there. Just an absolute dude.
Love him, man. I think we're the only ones that have him rated as a 4.
Yeah,
which is cool.
He's awesome
because I think he's going to make me look really smart.
Oh yeah,
6'4", 6'5", easy, long arms, rangy, a vertical ball winner.
Yes.
But what I like best about him is he's continued to expand his route tree year over year. And this year they're using him much more on underneath stuff and letting him cook.
His
in
run
the
after
open
catchability is fantastic.
For a big dude. His run after catchability is huge. Really good. On the other side of the ball at Lancaster, I don't know how much time. This one watches tons of tape. I just want to let you guys know. Tons of tape. Every time I look up in front of my desk, the huddle film is
who
on.
Who are you watching now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Manual Choice.
Tech commit Braylon McDonald.
Yeah.
What did you think of him?
I did not get to watch his tape.
I gotcha.
Unfortunately. But he is.
Well, then you ask me.
Okay.
You can ask me what I think about him. Okay. Go ahead. This was.
All right. What do you think about him? What do you think about the Texas Tech?
I had him underrated.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, because I went and watched the North Crowley Lancaster game week 1. We had the call on Texan Live.
You actually called that game. Yeah. I was at the Star in Frisco.
Braylon McDonald has really grown into himself. Mm-hmm. And I watched him play last year. Now he's the leader of the defense. And like last year's team had a bunch of outgoing seniors on it. Tobias Steps, Corian Gibson, Kawan Lacey. A lot of guys who the team turned to for senior leadership.
And I even talked about that. I was like, that team last year was stacked. And then I looked at this team this year, and I was like, this team is also stacked with tons of FBS P4 prospects.
Yeah, they're just going to keep coming because the pipeline at Lancaster is strong.
Yeah.
But McDonald has grown into a leader role on the defensive side of the ball. He flashes the ball very quickly. He plays fearless. He has a tremendous attitude. He's playing safety. I mean, in today's college football game, like, you want your safeties and corners to kind of be interchangeable. You want them to be able to do both because the game evolves quickly, and you have to be able to, with your strategy, be able to make moves to try to limit the offense's production. And a lot of times, like, back in the day, you wanted your safeties to be interchangeable, your free safety and your strong safety. Now, with so many teams running 5 defensive backs all the time, you need these defensive backs to be able to roam around and be able to match up no matter where they're put. And Braylon McDonald, to me, is one of those guys. So I see a pathway to early playing time for him at Texas Tech, where he's committed, and that's what I like about his game.
I also really like their quarterback, too. Carter Jones.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched his tape. He's the Nevada commit, which I think is perfect for him because Nevada runs the pistol offense, which is Lancaster, they run multiple offenses there, but I think he fits into Nevada's offensive style really, really well. He's kind of a gunslinger. He's not much of a runner, but he can definitely scramble out of the pocket a little bit and create something out of nothing. But I really like him there at Lancaster. Continues
to evolve and grow as a passer. That's what that really has stuck out to me in the early tape of 2024. This season, his senior year. He really didn't get the call to be a starter. I feel like he can't. So Lancaster lost to McKinney North in the pre-district, or the first. I can't remember if they were in their district maybe last year. In the early season, Lancaster lost to McKinney North. That game, they were running basically like a 2 QB system with Carter Jones and JQ Pipkins, who has moved full-time to wide receiver. Yeah, wide receiver. Pipkins got to start, and then Carter came in relief. They lost that game, but I feel like they went with Carter moving forward. Yeah. And that gave him the confidence, I feel like this is my team. And he started to change very, very rapidly because he has the size. He's a big dude, easily 6'3", and he has the arm. But his confidence started to grow, and that started to shine through also into the offseason. He was the next level athlete QB MVP. That's a loaded camp. Like, that's one of the top 2 or 3 camps in the state for the whole year. 150 of the top players in the Dallas area came to that camp, and Carter walked out with the medal MVP. That was when the light bulb started to go off for me about what they had under center. Like, because he was still changing into that guy. Now he is that guy. Right. And he has to be because there's no days off when you're playing this schedule. You know, they opened with North Crowley, and then they. Well, and I was going to talk about that too. You look at their record, right, and they're 1-3, and if you're just a casual high school football fan, you're looking at that and you're like, Lancaster, really? But you got to remember, they moved up from 5A Division I to now they're playing in 6A, and then they get stuck in the District of Doom, 11-6A with Duncanville. They've got Cedar Hill next week. They're coming off a win against, I believe, Mesquite Horn. Yeah, so it was a pretty good win. Shout out to Leon Paul, who we selected as the 6A Coach of the Week after that win over Mesquite Horn. That was a big win. Mesquite Horn's got dudes. Well, also, there's only 4 teams can make the playoffs. You can pencil in Duncanville and DeSoto. Yep. Right? So the spots after that are going to be very competitive. Well, in this district, too, they look very even. Besides Duncanville and DeSoto, I mean, Waxahachie, they've got 2 losses on the year. I mean, Cedar Hill doesn't look like the team that they have looked like in the past. I mean, it's a very open district. Anybody's grab. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to points. Spot. Oh, yeah. You know, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this district comes down to points because, you know, all these teams are going to be competitive within that district and beating on each other week in and week out. Like I said, you're going to pencil in DeSoto and Duncanville. They're going to be in the playoffs competing for a state championship. But who are going to win those final 2 spots? Well, this win over Mesquite Horn sets up Lancaster very nicely. Now, you can't take your foot off the gas pedal. Yeah. You have to be ready every week. No. Like, you have to be ready every week. But I feel like last year's district play and schedule, the success Leon Paul has had there over the last couple of years has served them well moving up to this challenge.
I think so too.
Because
they've been ready for it.
They played Forneys and Longviews and Lufkins.
Yes. They
and,
were not in an easy district last year either. I mean, it's not like they're coming from a pretty easily attainable district to a really tough one. Like you said, they've been stuck in a tough district for years now.
Yeah, and those teams also bumped to 6A.
Correct.
So Forney and Longview, I think Lufkin's still in 5A, but these are very competitive teams that you're playing, helps them be battle tested. And I just want to shout out Coach Paul, because the team that he took over there isn't the team that you see now. Mm-hmm. And I watch a lot of Texas high school football, and I'm around teams a lot. Mm-hmm. And the way that this team feels at practice, the way that this team feels on game day, the amount of kids that they have come out for the team, the amount of people who are in that area that want to play for that high school, play for Coach Paul, it's just a different feeling there. To me, I could be totally off base. That's how I feel about it. But I feel like this program is right back to where Chris Gilbert had it whenever he left.
Yes. Anyways, Leon Paul, Arlington High School graduate, so kick him.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know about that.
I know, right? I learned that at coaching school this year.
Tremendous track coach, too. He was the track coach at Duncanville, so he was under Reginald Samples before he came to Lancaster to be the head coach there. So he really believes in, that multi-sport background, and you can see it in a lot of the younger guys coming up. We've already named 2027 defensive back Victor Scott as a 4-star. They have running back in the 2026 class, Izayah Lee, which is a name that everybody should really know. I was letting my friends, and I know you guys, some of you are watching this, I was letting my friends in the college coaching industry know about Izayah Lee way before he even had a starter's role. So he was playing defensive back last year mostly, and they flipped him over to offense to be their running back now that Kawan Lacey has moved on to college. Mm-hmm. And funny story is Izayah Lee had earned an invitation into the next level athlete camp, but couldn't make it on time because he had church. So he came in late after church. So we got him registered, height and weight and all that stuff. And he ran into the camp to compete after it had kind of started, and he did really well. And because he was registered late, he had a jersey number on that didn't correspond with anybody on the roster. Uh-huh. So people were asking me the whole camp, who's this dude? Who's this? What? You know what I mean? I was like, well, that's Izayah. Let me tell you, that's Izayah Lee.
I got you.
So I think he's he's definitely going to be a key member of this team. They've got really good talent and skill on the offensive side of the ball, but I think that he is a definitive driver of that offense because they have to have success on the ground to open things up for Jones in the passing game.
And can I tell you something?
Sure.
You can watch all of those dudes on Dave Campbell's Texan Live this week.
There you go.
They play Cedar Hill on Friday.
Nice.
So if you like what you hear, if you like all those dudes that we just talked about, you can absolutely watch their game against Cedar Hill on Dave Campbell's Texan Live at TexanLive.com this weekend.
And every week on Hart and Hustle, you can hear us talk about Texas teams and Texas talent, and we'll be back.
It's everywhere.
We'll be back next week for episode 7.
He's Greg Powers. You can find all of his fine work at texasfootball.com/recruiting.
And that's Mallory Hartley, executive, associate, producer of all things Texas high school football.
And recruiting?
Not recruiting.
All things recruiting, because you're
Well, I mean, I felt like that fell into the category.
Yeah, it does.
Anyway, that was an awful outro. I did. She was doing good. I was not. So there you go.
We'll see you guys next Thursday at 2.